Here's what I published this week on my blog, Creative Flow, on Patreon, where for just $1 a month, you can get everything that I publish on all kinds of eclectic subjects, all original material. Okay, the first thing up about 5 days ago, is this 1956 home movie of me dressed up for Halloween to a nice boogie-woogie beat. I like to put a lot of old family photos and things up just so people know a little bit more about the artist behind the art. Speaking of art, here's some writing that I've done. I have a story called The Event that I'm putting out episodically. It's already been compiled into 6 different books, and I'm at work on the 7th. The story is that a mysterious force starts moving around the globe over a period of 24 hours, erasing everything man-made as it goes, which includes buildings and technology, clothing, and dental implants. So basically, everything that gives us a civilization will be gone, leaving the whole world completely naked and farther back than the Stone Age, because any kind of tool that may have been made is gone. We all have to start over from scratch. Well, how do governments and organizations deal with that? How does the population deal with the news this is happening? And more importantly, how do we all prepare? The event is coming. Are you prepared? So check it out. They're all free, serialized on my blog. I decided to get into AI art recently, and this particular piece, I wanted to see what it looked like to have Calvin and Hobbes in a rock band. So I created this, where you can see there are some problems already. There's Calvin with one hand on the strings, one hand making the chords, and the other hand making a rock star sign. For AI failures. You'll see the other 3 here on my blog. Stereotypical sword and sorcery. Again, playing around with AI art, I thought, could I create an image that you would see in stereotypical sword and sorcery stories? And sure enough, you could. So it's pretty dull, nothing interesting there, but it's just intriguing to be able to make such things using word prompts. That's where the real art is, in the word prompts. Now, this is something that if you know about Dramatica is a theory of narrative structure that has implications both for fiction and for the real world. I co-created it along with my partner Chris Huntley back in the 1990s, and since then hundreds of thousands of people have used it around the world, and major software was created so people could implement it for structure. And in fact, we've done work for the last dozen years for our nation's intelligence agencies. Yes, you know the ones, the NSA, the NRO, the CIA, and a bunch of other folks, in order to look into the motivations behind terrorism, terrorist groups, terrorist individuals, and to try and project what their likely actions would be in a number of what-if scenarios. Well, I've published many books on that over the years, but right now I'm publishing a book about my personal love-hate relationship with the theory. It's so big and overwhelming that it's taken over my life for these third of a century, I guess it is now. But at the same time, I expose a lot of theory that's never been published anywhere else, including the speculations that are kind of intriguing as to where it might lead. So, next we're on a photograph, another one of my art forms. Back in 1971 or 72, when I was a teenager, my parents and I went on a road trip from Los Angeles to New York to see my stepdad's hometown. And along the way, on the way back, we went through a huge storm, darkest storm I've ever seen, in Kansas or Nebraska, somewhere along that area. There, at one point, there was a big yellow eye of a sun sticking out under a completely dark sky. Otherwise, it looked very Mordor, quite honestly. But here's a shot that I saw out my passenger seat window as we passed by. And since I'd just been given a camera, 35mm camera, my very first one for my graduation from high school by my parents, I decided I would take some art shots along the way, and this is one that I shot out the window in Kansas and Nebraska, Farm in Trouble. What else do I do? Okay, here's Composer's Sketchbook. Over the last half century, since the 1970s, I have composed more than 500 original tunes, riffs, snatches of melodies, and complete songs. Sometimes I publish the fully produced studio songs that I've made in today's electronic age of synthesizers. I was working with synthesizers back in the 80s, but now it's even so much more wonderful and magical. In any event, you'll see those on my blog, but every once in a while I publish one of my 500 original composer's sketchbook entries, which were made originally on cassette and are now done digitally. And it talks about the song, where it came from, why it's like it is, and you can hear it if you care. An anti-biography. When I sat down at this age to decide I was going to maybe do a biography, I didn't want to do the ordinary biography. Suddenly I realized I wanted to do an anti-biography, but I had no idea what that was. And it occurred to me eventually that a biography is like an old wagon wheel where all the spokes point towards the center, and it's all about me, all about the every autobiography is not about me, of course, it's about the author. But then I started thinking, well, what if you inversed it so it became an anti-biography? Well, then it's more like a donut with a hole in the middle where the author is, and instead you learn about the author indirectly as they talk about the people they met in life and the experiences they had with them. It's not so much memoirs where you're saying, I was there for this and I was there for that, but just little things like this one. My grandfather said ARF. It's something he did. He'd come around the corner when I was a pre-kindergartner, and I would suddenly walk around and see him coming, and he'd go, ARF! And I thought he was just making fun, and I eventually started doing all kinds of animal noises and impressions of people, but it turns out that's not what he was doing. I misinterpreted, and this story is about what he really meant. Okay, so, we're definitely pretty ripe at this old age, but we still go out hiking on the John Muir Trail and other places, section hikes, not the whole thing. Probably couldn't do that at this age, but we may still give it a shot. Anyway, in 2019, we went with a friend, this is Teresa and me, in our tent during a hail and thunderstorm on the John Muir Trail, giving a little report of what that is like, or was like. One of my interests is in psychedelic art, and Peter Max, who did a lot of that, also some very interesting graphic art back in the 70s and 80s. Peter Max has a great style. I also like the 1920s as one of the eras I'm interested in, so I thought, what if Peter Max was living in the 1920s and did his art style of a 1920s car race? This is actually not the best picture. There's another one that's really, really good, and I've already published that, but this one came out this week. So you get a chance to look at it and read a little bit about it. Back to Dramatic and Me. That's the final chapter. And then, yes, this week, for 2 weeks straight now, just ending today, I'm surprised I haven't coughed while I've been doing this recording. All three of us in the house here have been recovering from a nasty virus. We think it might be RSV because there's no fever like the flu. It's too long and nasty for a cold. We tested for COVID. It's not that, so probably RSV. And we're all having trouble getting over it, but it's staying a light case. It's not going into lower lungs. But I still had to go online because I told you we worked for the government agencies and we're working for them now. Well, every day we have a Zoom meeting with our little team to try and advance the project we're working on that I can't really tell you about because it's not exactly secret, but it's certainly not for public consumption. Anyway, so this was me as I was listening to my side of a Zoom meeting with my partners, actually taken at the time, trying to recover from this stupid virus. Now, here's an idea I had. What if I took Poe and Tesla, who were two of my great heroes? I think they're wonderfully creative, and since they have a lot of similarities in their style of the way they looked and kind of the somber attitude they had, what if I put them together in the same shot with each of their most famous creations? A Tesla coil. Got to get those dentures fixed. I don't have dentures, but I wish I'd stop using that line, because now at this age, people think I do, even though I've used that line since I was 18, and then it was ironic. Anyway, okay, I decided to put some pictures together to try to see these two guys together with their greatest creations represented. This one came out okay, but there were 6 others that are all right, ranging down to pretty damn awful. And so you'll find all of those here if you care to look at them. And, of course, you can always right-click and download them. So, you want these? $1 a month to sign on to Patreon. Now, there's the outtakes from my book. I figured instead of appendices, I would put outtakes. They're more fun. And also there's even more theory that I have included there that isn't in the book proper, although it's not hardly a proper book. Now, right after writing Dramatic in Me, I wrote The Story Mind in Me, which is the second book in the trilogy. Story Mind in Me is all about using our theories of narrative psychology for individual psychology and sociology. And so, again, that real world usage, as I talked about with terrorists, but also looking at social movements and looking at our relationships within our families, that kinds of thing. I even had one person who took these theories and went to their therapist, and they tried to integrate their multiple personalities using it. I don't know if they were successful. I never heard from any of them, but it's been tried. Anyway, so I decided I would write the second book about this part of it. Each book is one about fiction, Dramatica. This one's about that. And then there's another book called Mental Relativity in Me, which is the third in the trilogy. And that talks about the scientific basis for it, biology, physics, and all those wonderful things. Mathematics. Ooh, okay. So that's the prologue. I'm serializing that again. You get it for free. I also put in the first chapter and a second chapter so that everybody could get a shot at it. And now, what the hell is this? All right. Well, I'm a big fan of Salvador Dali. I visited the Salvador Dali Museum in Florida once and was just so taken with a lot of the works they had there, seeing them in person. Everything, all art in person looks so much better than even in the best presented book or screenshot. Anyway, I thought, what if we took the concept of the melting clocks and watches that Salvador Dali drew and applied it to cats? Okay, and so that's what this is all about, and I ended up with 4 really interesting things. This, of course, being rather sad, poor melting cat. Anyway, it's just one of the things that crosses my mind, so I thought I'd go see it. Yeah, another one of these computer's sketchbook thing, composer's sketchbook. I won't talk about it much, just say this one sounds like it's kind of drug-induced. It's kind of, ooh, okay. I never did drugs. I've tried marijuana, as they say. I've tried Mary Jane probably 4 times, and each time I actually hated the way it made me feel because I'm so out there that it just, it's like multiplying something that's already where people are trying to get. Not a good thing. But anyway, song comes out kind of that way, and I guess I can write in that style. Anyway, never developed the song, but you can hear it here. This one's 2 minutes, 26 seconds of original music from the 1970s. And finally, this is the last thing from this week. Again, I only had like 5 days would fit on the scroll on Patreon at a time. And this is Glass Deer. Again, when my parents gave me, as I mentioned, my first 35mm camera, my stepdad shot in 35mm, shot slides, so that's what I did. And we went on that road trip. But after I got it, I took a few pictures, and I think this is the very first art shot I ever did at 17 or 18. 17, this would be 18, say 18. Okay, I took this picture in our living room. That's the living room window in the back. That's our lamp, which was very retro from the 1970s. And this little tchotchke deer that came from, well, you can read about it if you want to know where it came from. Anyway, I managed to get some highlights on the deer, to cut right down where the leg was, to have a dark side and a light side. And I was very pleased with the result of this. Again, shooting slides, I only took one shot of it because film is expensive in those days. Not like digital film, which is really cheap. Anyway, that's what I did on Creative Flow. Now, here's the other thing, is I have collections of all the stuff I've published. I've published right now almost 650 different posts of my previous work, and I'm going to run down here to show you that at the very bottom, there's things about the Dramatica theory and writing tips that have nothing to do with the theory. I've been teaching writing for 33 years now, so this is all about the Dramatica and me. You've seen some of that. Early Dramatica development documents that is kind of like the Crick and Watson stuff, if they kept notes and people were interested in looking at them. Expert level, advanced, basic level Dramatica, Dramatica Unplugged, video I did back in the 90s, 1999, with all new commentary, and my Dramatica journal for ongoing development, such as what I'm doing right now. Past lives, that's a bunch of stuff that goes back with my family album, like the home movies you saw, and photographs, and other videos that I shot. These are the more current things that sort of drift into past lives, I guess, but just from the time I started the blog, this is what's going on right now, new stuff. My creative journey, all right, funny stuff, art. I created snippets and bits, more than 2,000 little short truisms that are, or snarky comments that I've published in a series of 3 books so far. I'm at work on the 4th. And poems, some of which are in one of my 2 books on poetry so far, but I'm adding new ones all the time, so I need another volume out there. The event that we talked about, that's pretty cool. Composer's sketchbook, original music. This is the really good stuff that I actually created. You click on it, you see a whole list all the latest stuff at the top of the really good music that I created. Monochrome photographs, color photographs, AI art, okay, and Creative Journal, where I talk about things like probably today I'll talk about the fact I'm making this first video of the things on my blog. So the whole idea is to go to make these videos, encourage people to come and take a look at the blog, pay $1 a month, and you actually get like a 7-day free trial, so you're not even committed to the lousy dollar, okay? You can pay $1 a month. And it's not because I'm trying to make money. I just want to make sure that people who come here care enough about what I'm creating that it means something to them, because that means something to me. Just putting it out there and having nobody look at it or pay attention to it or put so many likes or get so many views, I hate that game. So I've left Facebook, and now I'll just take my followers on YouTube and try to get you to come over here and see all the stuff I did for just 100 lousy cents. Okay. Anyway, so there you go. That's this week's Creative Flow. I'll be back next week with a whole new show of all the stuff that I've created since, wait for it, now. That's it. Bye-bye. See you next time.